So the 2 vs 8 game mode for Dead by Daylight is finally out, and for the first time ever, you can actually use licensed killers for free, but the queues are still extremely long, so picking the right killer is crucial in order to not feel like you just wasted 20 minutes of your life waiting only to get absolutely destroyed in a match that lasts 5 minutes. So let's take a look at the most fun and strong killers in this game mode, as well as some interesting combos to run with your friends. Unless it's a ranking of the killers with the best chests in Dead by Daylight, the Trapper will always be last on the majority of tier lists, as he cannot escape being the worst killer even in 2 vs 8. Despite having a lot of massive buffs to his base kit power, the fundamental design of the bear traps simply doesn't work on a game such as this. The Trapper still has to go around the map in order to pick up traps, only this time they are even further apart because maps are bigger. There are more areas to trap around too due to this problem, and even if you catch a survivor, you need a second killer that is fast in order to get there to confirm the kill, or you have to travel there yourself, which can take a long time. And considering the fact that there are 8 survivors, the chances of one of their teammates saving them is also significantly more. Trapper's camping strength are also gone, since you cannot choose where the survivor goes after downing them, and the inability to hold something like a 3-gen makes his territorial power worse than in a 1 vs 4 scenario. And let's not forget how one of the classes for the survivors is a wall hack ability that lets everyone in the map see where you place your bear traps. So, in other words, Trapper is purely a support character, with the goal being to trap the main building at the beginning of the match and then putting random traps in loops just in case the survivors fall on them. Now that RPD is part of this game mode, and since this is our first indoor map full of choke points, Trapper can feel absolutely fantastic on that map. But anywhere else, he is a C tier killer. If what you want is a casual, chill experience, just putting bear traps around the map and catching survivors off guard, Trapper is a honest choice. But if you want crazy combos or absolutely dominating with your teammate, Trapper is just an M1 killer. Possibly the biggest disappointment in this game mode is the Nemesis, who got the coolest outfit out of this new round of cosmetics, but the worst stick regarding his power in 2 vs 8. The Nemesis still feels exactly the same as the Nemesis, and that's the biggest problem he has, because you play the exact same. You don't get extra zombies, which is a massive disappointment. You still have 2, which means that now, instead of having 25% of the survivor team busy with a zombie, it's only 12.5%, so the zombies individually have significantly less impact, augmented even more due to the fact that the maps are bigger. And in terms of power, all you get as special in this mode is that zombies can see better, they spawn faster, and when you whip them, you get an extra mutation rate. Things you can already do with add-ons, which are admittedly some of the most boring choices for Nemesis by default. You don't get mutation faster by hitting survivors, as you don't have Marvin's blood, and you don't get anything extra from tier 3, like the ability to break generators with your whip. You do get a stronger effect of Liquor's Tongue, but you still have to hit survivors 3 times in order to down them with your power, and now there are 8 survivors, so that means hitting the tentacle even more times. Combo wise, the staple of Whisker and Nemesis doesn't synergize at all, since survivors can remove both of your infections at the same time by using the Antidote, a new special item exclusive for this mode that contains 3 charges. The contamination itself doesn't do anything to help your teammate besides make survivors waste their time looking for supply crates in order to get a vaccine. So, at most, you can use Nemesis with Spirit since contaminated survivors cough even while healthy, making Spirit's tracking a bit easier. Still, it's very disappointing how his power was barely transformed in this game mode compared to the rest of characters, as even the Trapper has a lot of changes going on. As the final killer that I would consider actually weakish, we have the Deathslinger, who just like Nemesis got barely any changes to his power to fit this mode, as all they gave him is faster reload speed and faster reeling, which can literally be done by 2 add-ons by default. Slinger suffers from the same problem as Nemesis does, in that taking down a survivor requires various steps. First, you have to hit your shot, then you have to reel the survivors in, which is harder due to the fact that there are more pallets all over the map, as well as there being many more survivors, meaning that it's easier to body block for each other. And then, you actually have to hit the survivors. Slinger is still slow, so maps being bigger also hurts you a lot. However, the difference between the two characters is that you have to play Slinger in a support duo way, as he has one of the easiest to tap potentials out of any other character, since you keep survivors still when you shoot them. Combined with Hillbilly, for example, you can let them chainsaw the survivors while they cannot move. With a duo Whisker, you can shoot the survivors that are thrown by him as well. So despite this being one of the weakest killers in 2 vs 8, if you play around with your teammate's character, you can actually have a lot of fun as a support range killer. But with normal characters like Legion, Blight or Spirit, he is just a worse version of Huntress in every single aspect. The Legion is the second new integration of the Resident Evil 2 vs 8 collab, as he comes with the Hunk skin, and he is surprisingly fun as long as your teammate doesn't use the Shadow class, since his tracking power is tied to the terror radius, so let them know in game chat just in case. They are another support focused killer, as your job is to stab the survivors constantly in order to keep them injured for your teammate to down, which is why I think combining Legion with Nemesis or Hillbilly is not that good of an idea. However, if you are with a teammate that knows what they're doing, you can constantly harass survivors during the match and keep them injured, wasting their medic powers as well as the new green herbs all over the map. Think of it this way, the best counter to Legion is to gen rush and not heal, but in this game mode you have a second killer, so you have to heal. You can even combine Legion with Spirit, since keeping survivors injured will make it easier to track for your teammate too. However, if you get a Legion as a teammate, remember that they can bypass pallets, so most of the time you will have to be the one breaking them while the Legion injures the survivors unless you are the nurse. Getting the 8th hit with the Legion is very rare, as the size of the maps, the amount of chaos, as well as the fact that survivors can just start running early makes this task difficult, but Legion compensates in other ways. They are the only killer currently in this mode outside of the Resident Evil cast which have tracking incorporated on their kit, so thanks to Legion you can locate where survivors are resetting and let your teammate know, which is boosted further thanks to the 20-meter terror radius buff exclusive to this mode. This is crucial information, especially later in the match when finding the last survivor is hard. If your fun is based on being a killer, constantly harassing survivors with your stabs and running all around the map being a pain in the butt, then Legion is a great pick. However, if you want to feel like an unstoppable killer, downing survivors constantly and doing amazing combos with your teammate, then I wouldn't recommend them. The only problem I have with them is how I wish there was a way to count how many stabs you have, as amidst the chaos, it's hard to keep track of it, and visually, it's also not as easy personally. The Spirit is a very strong killer in 1 vs 4 Dead by Daylight, so having her so low might be a surprise for a lot of you, but I feel like there is no reason to use this character in this game mode unless you specifically find the Spirit's playstyle fun. The Spirit's power is boosted for this mode as if you were running some of her best add-ons, as your power lasts longer, recharges faster, and your movement speed is increased by a bit. However, her power, just like Deathslinger, is only good in 1 vs 1 situations. So in a game mode where you are against 8 different survivors in a massive map with some of their powers allowing survivors to mute themselves or heal during a chase, the Spirit just becomes worse. Add in the fact that since your power doesn't allow you to see the auras of survivors, and a lot of times their aura is revealed randomly thanks to your teammate finding them or due to a generator being repaired, you're going to be missing out on a lot of information. My biggest problem with her is how much more random audio is during the match, which is a huge problem for Spirit as your entire power is based on audio. Generators being repaired, 5 survivors running at the same time, various screams from your teammate downing and caging survivors, and add in the potential of your killer friend being on Discord and yapping about completely useless stuff. It's way too much for a killer that usually requires complete silence in order to concentrate. That doesn't remove the fact that the Spirit is fundamentally a strong killer, and her buffs on this game mode make her significantly stronger than in 1 vs 4. The Blight is another killer that, just like Spirit, is one of the best killers in the entire game, but not as strong in this game mode where other elements are important. With bigger maps and more palettes, Blight is better than Spirit since he can rush pallets down and move around the map more than she can do, and he also gets to see auras 24/7, since you don't lose the visibility of the auras of survivors anytime you use your power. The buffs added to this game mode also add very strong add-ons to him, so he feels much better to play with. But the problem is that once again, it just feels like you're using a stronger Blight and not anything special for this game mode. So if you want to down survivors a lot, he is a good pick, but outside of that, there isn't anything unique about him. The bumping on your teammates is a gimmick at most, as there aren't many cases where this is crucial in order to get a down, since your teammate will be closer to the survivors if you need to bump on them, and you can also bump on the Nemesis zombies, but once again, it just feels like a gimmick. Cool that it's there, but you're not going to be using it in the majority of your matches. The Blight still has to travel around the map, still has to down survivors with 2 hits, still has to deal with pallets and generators, and has nothing special to help your teammates. For that reason, while Blight is incredibly strong, it just feels like you're playing 1 vs 8 instead of 2 vs 8, and I value fun a lot in this game mode. Just like the Blight and the Spirit, Hillbilly is yet another S tier killer, however his kit is significantly better than Blight and Spirit for this game mode thanks to his insta-kill ability and his unconditional mobility, 2 things which both Spirit and Blight lack. Hillbilly is the only killer of this game mode that can instantly down survivors thanks to his power, which makes healthy survivors still be in danger compared to literally everyone else who needs to be hit twice. And Hillbilly's chainsaw doesn't require any cooldown for it to work, and in fact it also becomes better the more you use it to travel around the map. And since maps are bigger and usually more open, this means you're going to be using your power constantly, which combines even better with the aura reveals that you will constantly get after a survivor repairs a generator or your teammate finds someone. Hillbilly and Deathslinger is the most fun combo I've had in DBD overall, but he also combines really well with most characters outside of the Legion because you can play Hillbilly alone and still perform well. I do have to mention that with the introduction of RPD, Hillbilly is a bit harder to use compared to before as every map was open, but that doesn't mean he is unusable in that map, it's just that you will have to play him in a different way. In the last 2 vs 8 game mode, the Wraith was by far the strongest killer to choose because of a glitch which made his uncloak speed significantly better than it was intended. With the fixed Wraith buffs, he is still a fantastic pick to choose in this game mode that synergizes extremely well with the playstyle this mode rewards. The Wraith's constant unconditional mobility allows him to both move around the map in order to find survivors and reveal their auras thanks to his hit and run capabilities. In fact, I would go as far as to say that Legion and Wraith combo is one of the strongest combos in this version and absolutely S tier in terms of killer teammates you can have, since the hit and run tactic perfectly works with both killers, and Wraith can take advantage of the tracking from the Legion in order to find survivors trying to heal. His buffs feel significantly stronger than default Wraith. You have better cloak and uncloak speed, better movement speed while cloaked, and you break pallets and generators faster, which is very useful since there are so many more pallets and generators in this mode. He just feels very smooth to use, fits with any killer that your teammate can choose with, and with any class, and is overall a fun time. Another character that fits any killer composition and is extremely fun is the Huntress, who is basically the same as her previous version. The Huntress' ability to injure survivors from afar is crucial for this game mode, as it allows you to 2-tap survivors from a distance, and this is especially great with the aura reading that you constantly get while in the match, as well as the maps being more open than usual. The inclusion of RPD does hurt the Huntress, as it's an indoors map, but she can still work there. The important part of the Huntress is how even with distance, you are still dangerous to all survivors in the map, and how your DPS is technically higher than the rest of killers since the hatchet cooldown is lower than a basic attack, and you don't need to catch up to the survivors either. They don't know at what point they will get hit by a random axe snipe, and that's what is so cool about her, getting those nasty shots and helping your teammate out when you are so far away, even when the Huntress is very slow herself, so she feels like a killer that works alone and can also support your teammates. The Huntress is also the only killer capable of camping cage survivors too, since anytime you are near them for an extended period of time, they teleport away, but you can hold them from a distance with your hatchets. However, if you do this, personally, I think you're taking this game mode way too seriously. The point of the Huntress, and what makes her so fun, is the snipes. You have to go for the long shots with her and hit them. Her power is very satisfying to use, and now that bots are not as busted as they were before, hitting them with the Huntress feels like very easy downs. What happens when you take the best killer in Dead by Daylight, buff her, and add her in the new game mode? We have the Nurse, who is once again fundamentally broken, but in my opinion not the most fun choice, which is why for the first time ever in a tier list, the Nurse is not S tier. Her power is fully focused on just downing the survivors around the map, and that's it. She doesn't have any support ability, and in fact, she's one of the worst characters to have for the other side since she completely bypasses pallets and thus doesn't need to break them. However, when played right, with the support mentality, she is still the Nurse, capable of downing survivors everywhere. Aura reading is very strong with her, making survivors basically impossible to escape from you, and if you combine her with other characters like Legion who can bypass pallets and keep survivors injured, she is a nightmare. She can also teleport to trap survivors with the Trapper, teleport to chain survivors by Deathslinger, or grab survivors by Wesker, and this is what makes her strong, the fact that since she is the Nurse, you can play the game as a 1 vs 1, and when your teammate needs help, you can also double tap them with the large teleport distance. She is just busted. And finally, taking the throne of the Nurse, we have a very popular addition to the new game mode, and that is Albert Wesker, who is in my personal opinion one of the best killers in this game mode, not only in terms of strength, but also in fun. Wesker by default was already a pretty strong killer, but for some reason the devs decided to just buff him to an absurd degree, to the point that I think he might be nerfed in the future. Let's start with his dashes, as he has 3 of them and they recharge faster, so your power is fundamentally very busted compared to the default Mastermind, as you cannot replicate this with add-ons. When you think about it, it's crazy how many things he got. And then we have killers like Slinger, who just reloads faster and that's it. But that is not all that he offers, as another buff of his makes it so that vaulting pallets and windows takes significantly faster than default. This feels very smooth in the game, and you can just jump the pallets or vaults and catch the survivors off guard because of how fast you can do it and can hit them. This feels like an overbuff for sure. To top it all off, we have the power design itself. Wesker is the only character outside of Nemesis which comes with an incorporated secondary objective that survivors have to do, which are the new cases. The thing is that unlike with Nemesis, which has an infection that does nothing outside of making survivors cough, and Legion, which has mending, which survivors can undo after getting hit, the Ouroboros actually gives a severe penalty to those survivors who keep it because they end up hindered, and that makes it easier for your teammate to catch them. So this is something you simply cannot ignore as a survivor, not to mention the fact that with the infection maxed out, Wesker is the second killer able to down survivors in one hit. His power is perfect for this mode in every single aspect. It works as mobility, especially thanks to the buffed vault speed and the 3 dashes. It works as tracking, since survivors will reveal their location after they use the sprays. It works as a very powerful chase tool, so you can work alone without relying on your teammate, and it also works perfectly with so many killers, since you can hold survivors for a small period of time after grabbing them, making it significantly easier to double tap compared to the rest of the cast. If you want the strongest killer in this mode, as well as the most fun, Whisker is by far the best choice. Let me know which is your favorite killer to use in this game mode, and also I hope that your matches are already starting and you're still not waiting in queue for one. As always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.